Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy and governance. I am Suleiman. Thank you for joining us. As stakeholders in Nigeria's electoral process continue to push for more reforms in the nation's Electoral Act and other enabling laws to sanitize and enhance the processes and conduct of elections in the country, the 10th National Assembly has commenced another round of amendment to the Electoral Act 2022. A bill to amend select provisions of the Electoral Act 2022, HB 37, last week passed the second reading in the House of Representatives and subsequently referred to the Committee on Electoral Matters for further legislative action. Recall that the 2023 general elections and subsequent off-season polls have witnessed contemporary and emerging challenges such as electronic transmission of results, effective application of election result viewing portal, vote buying and selling, amongst several others, that in the final analysis affected the outcome of the polls and generated legal issues that were litigated upon up to the highest court of the land, the Supreme Court. It is against this backdrop we'll be engaging a member of the civil society group and good governance advocate Chima Christian and the national president of the United Nigeria Youth Congress, Suleiman, to take a look at the current efforts to enhance the nation's electoral processes and procedure for an effective leadership recruitment drive. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
Okay, while we have Suleiman in the studio, we're still expecting Chima Christian, who will join us shortly. Now, before we engage in the conversation, here is a tidbit. President Bola Tinubu, Special Advisor on Information and Strategy, Bayo Nanuga, has revealed how it will be challenging for the federal government to set the new proposed minimum wage at 100,000 naira. Onanuga, who spoke in an interview with Arise TV, monitored by Telegraph, said Nigeria's existing financial situation would not allow either the federal or state governments to pay their staff salaries if the new minimum wage is pegged at 100,000 naira. However, it will be recalled that the majority of state governors presently struggle to pay the current minimum wage on the basis Onanuga used as support for his claim. Now, before we commence the conversation, let's take a short break. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us on Daily Politics. And now we commence the conversation. Suleiman, thank you for coming.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for accepting me.
Right. You know, as a youth president or a youth leader, so to speak, I know some of the challenges youths face, you know, in the electioneering process largely has to do with their active participation and how the enabling laws perhaps will allow them to get involved properly. But before you answer a question on this, I want you to comment on the tidbit we just read concerning the statement made by the senior special advisor to the president, Mr. Bayo Onanuga, who said that the federal government cannot afford to pay 100,000 naira as minimum wage. What do you make up with that?
All right, it is quite clear and very visible for everyone to understand the current economic hardship that we have in this country today. Fuel is about 700. Our daily expenses, everything is going harder. Everything is going up every day. If you buy something today, it will never be the same tomorrow. So the issue
because
is
of the hyperinflation.
Because of inflation, hyperinflation. It's not even a normal inflation; it's a hyperinflation, which I just read it now. Dollar is as today is 1,500 and something
officially. Official market.
So
what happened to the parallel market?
So the issue is our workers cannot be able to to take based on the salary or the current minimum wage that is in this country.
We're talking about 30,000,
yes,
and not even paid by all.
Yes, not even paid. At 5,000, how many governors are even paying that kind of money? So if you want you know, a very good job. What I mean by that is if you want workers to do things the way they should, mostly the security operatives, you have to, you know, cater their needs, and that salary we know is not enough for them to take their daily.
It cannot take them home.
It cannot take. Yeah, I don't want to go deep into that because there was a military man who was complaining. Well, that is the one reality, honestly, and the government should look critically on it, on how we can be able, you know, to at least reduce the hardship, so that workers at least will have the energy.
Yeah, but what some people find strange is the fact that the same president, if you like, President Bola Tinubu, was the one who promised Nigerians during the electioneering campaign, you know, that he is ready to give them living wage, not even minimum wage, you know, at the point he was campaigning. And he sustained this all over time. And now for his special advisor to come out and say he cannot even afford 100,000 naira as minimum wage. What went wrong?
Well, there's what they say, there's life after campaign. So I believe that was a campaign promises. Because if you can remember what the APC was saying before, you know, coming around 2014, they promised heaven and earth.
The dollar
on earth, equal to 1 naira. Which any, you know, any sensible and educated person knows that that is unrealistic. So it's, I'm not surprised for them to, you know, to say they cannot afford that minimum wage by the, at this moment, because
so the reality is down to, and is down on them now.
Now you have seen the reality, probably. Yes. So this is politics.
Okay, but then there's also need to reconcile, because the labor is also asking for a $1 million naira minimum wage, for instance. So we're talking about being realistic. Who is being, I mean,
it's not realistic for 1 million naira. I'm very sure about it, and everyone knows 1 million naira. In fact, if federal government is to pay 1 million naira to workers, it's another inflation. Because if there is too much money in circulation, it will be, you know, inflation will. Yes, exactly. But the reality is the current minimum wage is not enough for Nigerians.
That's right.
And government should look critically on it.
So there is need to reconcile positions.
Yes.
But the labor and the government must come to the negotiating
for the interest
table
of our country
and look at the reality. Because workers are gasping for breath. The government is struggling to make ends meet, even though some say there is also need to look at the spendings.
Yes.
What is the government spending, you know, in terms and for what? Prioritizing the necessary items. You know, when you're buying the likes of luxury vehicles, building houses and what have you, and then increasing, I mean, so some felt that there is need to also cut on cost of governance.
Yes, that is the one major problem that we are facing in this country today. The government will be saying there's no money, but you'll end up seeing you know, the politicians living in a lively, you know, lavish lifestyle. There was a video of you know, one of our awareness campaigns that I was saying, you know, it is only in Nigeria you'll find out that someone is someone who had the opportunity to serve people, but end up, you know, shortchanging, you know, and most of those who are in power today are doing it for, aspiration of even being in power is based on selfish interests.
What they are going to gain, not how.
National interests today have been replaced with individual interests.
That's right.
So if you can look at the critical issues facing our country, you'll find out that that leadership is the key major problems.
Right.
And majority of people looking, you know, to go into power is because they want their lifestyle to change. So immediately someone grab power, all those Hilux, all those, you know, Prados, Jeeps, having convoy with it, then that is when someone will change, will totally change.
That's right.
Let's say even if he has the intention of you know, bringing changes, but I don't know, somehow, is it the mentality there, or I don't even know what is wrong there, but immediately someone grabbed that power, that will be the end of that advocacy of dream on and everything. So the politicians, of course, are even running away from people, because they feel the people are more of a burden after election. So
after they secure the mandate.
After they secure the mandate. So it's maybe during, maybe before the election, or maybe a few months or few years to election, that is when they will start going back to the people.
They now realize that they have to go back.
Exactly. And somehow you can't blame those people who you promise earth on, heaven on earth, for them, looking for certain things from you, because it is an example. You'll find out that someone who is your neighbor or your friend, you know him before he been in that position, but immediately he got power.
Millionaire over time.
Yes. If he's living in let's say a society, you'll end up seeing him buying houses. Buying his neighbor's houses, demolishing it.
That is if he didn't relocate.
It's either he relocate or buy the houses of those who were his neighbors. Yes. So these kind of things will have a huge impact even to the poverty that we have currently.
Right. Okay. Let's come back to our subject of discussion. The Electoral Act Amendment Bill currently before the National Assembly. It was transmitted to the House of Representatives Committee on electoral matters, for instance. There has been these concerns around the need, to take a second look or to tinker with the Electoral Act 2022, as it was amended and all of that, because there are certain areas or certain things that are yet not clear to Nigerians. For instance, the issue of electronic transfer of results has generated a lot of controversy, but looking at the provisions of the Electoral Act, Nigerians now come to realize that, that provision is not mandatory on INEC, for instance. It is just there, shall, and all of that. So it is not mandatory. And then it generated a lot of controversy. In fact, almost crippled the 2023 election because of the anxiety it generated and all of that. What do you make up of the attempt now to tinker with the Electoral Act?
Yes, what I believe is there should be room for amendment. If I'm to give my personal opinion, every end of election there should be an amendment. And that amendment should, will give a way to see the kind of mistakes, the kind of problems, let's say, in the past elections. But however, I will still give little credit to the INEC. Looking at our past elections, at least I think there is kind of improvement. We can't 100% condemn them. But however, looking at the issue of the electronic transfer, the INEC chairman gave assurance to Nigerians that they will use that electronic transfer in order to have a clear transparency. But ended up maybe changing his words. So and that
they blame it on technicalities. There were glitches that were not anticipated.
They had 4 years to prepare for elections. So that shouldn't be an excuse. And they should be very careful in the sense that that kind of promises will continue, will make Nigerians more angry, you understand?
The confidence, it erode the confidence of the people.
So you see, if we can't, if the INEC chairman will promise something and then during the election day, after spending billions of naira, he will end up changing what he promised, then I think there's a serious problem. And in subsequent elections that will come, similar things should be looked critically. Because it will create havoc and chaos.
Okay. Looking at the areas, the wide range of areas that need to be covered. They're talking about the need to look at issues around, voter registration, voting systems, the collation of results. We are now talking about transfer, disputes on elections and so on and so forth. All of these are issues that have generated concerns. Take, for instance, the recent one. Talking about the outcome of the verdict of the Court of Appeal in respect of the legislators in Plateau, for instance, where it generated a lot of controversy. Electoral matters concerning elections in the states, end at the Court of Appeal, and now a Supreme Court made certain pronouncements that were not in tandem with what happened at the Court of Appeal, and it generated it. Are some of these some of the issues that need to be looked at? Do you think the National Assembly should go into those areas, I mean, to ensure that there is no loophole?
Yes, of course, they should look into that, because it's a very serious problem.
Right.
There's no way, an appeal will say something different, while the Supreme Court, I still remember what the judge said at that time. He was like even criticizing the judges who,
the lower court, that is the Court of Appeal.
Yeah, the Court of Appeal. Yeah. So what I want to make it clear is INEC alone is not, 100%, shouldn't be 100% in terms of our electoral process.
Yeah.
If you are going to criticize INEC, definitely you also criticize, let's say, the judicial system, because there's always a room to amend or to clear some certain mistakes that have been done, and that should be the decision of judiciary.
Yeah, but what isn't this part of the issues? Because the legislature is there to adjudicate, is there rather to make the laws. And some of these laws need to be made seamless so that there is no ambiguity, so that they're clear, and all of that. Is it not an attempt perhaps to look at some of those areas?
That is what I'm trying to say. Of course, the legislature should look critically on this kind of issues. And then, the problem of Nigeria is not just about the law.
Yeah.
Most of laws, we have it, maybe on paper you'll see we have one of the most...
implementation.
Yes,
largely.
But the issue is implementation. And if we cannot implement some of these laws, then problems will keep happening without us having a possible way to solve those kind of problems. So I look at it as, of course, the legislature, that is their duty. To look on those issues, and then of course you can't take away the judiciary. The lawmakers might pass a bill, but at the end that implementation which should be the work of the judiciary. So I believe there are a lot of things that it is not just the issue of our laws or the system. I believe most of these politicians or those who have who are in dominion of certain to control of this, are those rigging the system in their own favor.
Yeah, talking about rigging the system, and the fact that it is not just about the laws. Fundamentally, the roles played by key actors in the polity also matters.
Yes.
We've had certain amendments in the last, in the current Electoral Act 2022 as it is. Some say substantially it has sanitize the system. It has given way for transparency and so on and so forth. Elections are being perfected, so to speak. Before now, we are dealing with issues of ballot box snatching, stealing, and the rest of it. And today, that has been eliminated somehow, because all of it is largely now electronics.
Yes.
So if you like, you can go with the box, but then results have already been
transmitted.
So to some extent. But then there is need to consolidate.
Yes.
But how do we deal with the human factor? Because the role played by the actors matters a lot.
That is the major problem of our country, not only in the INEC or electoral system. Generally, that is our problem.
Right.
But my advice is, which I'm sure many of those politicians would not like it, but the independence of the electoral system.
Right.
In the sense that we know that a governor is responsible for nominating, first of all, even the INEC chairman. Secondly, the commissioners, which shouldn't happen.
Shouldn't be.
We have to, based on the implementation, the INEC should be 100% autonomous, independent,
right.
And then
in terms of finances,
in terms of recruitment, appointments, it has to be 100% independent. If we really mean well for the democracy of this country, we have to allow the INEC to handle its mandate.
But how does it do that?
That is where the problem is.
Some are already talking about they need to unbundle it because it has many works to do.
That is where the problem is. Because those in power will not allow 100% INEC to move or to work the way it should. Because if they are to allow that to happen, then there will be a lot of problems, maybe in them, for them to go back. So likewise, it also goes back to the issue of judiciary. I will still reiterate on that, because we need 100% also autonomy of the judiciary. Because if you don't have the autonomy of the judiciary, whereby the executive are the ones, you know, controlling the judiciary, then whatever you implement or whatever the lawmakers might pass as a bill will also end up in control of the executive.
But why isn't that the beauty of democracy? Because if there is no checks and balances, one arm of government would dominate the other. For instance, if the legislature is allowed, for instance, to just set the benchmark for salaries of lawmakers without the executive implementing, that is, giving the money, giving the resources, and then if, for instance, the legislators or the executive would come up with a bill that suit them, and then, or there is a contention around what the executive is sending between the legislature and the executive, the judiciary is there to now interpret the laws and apply the brakes. Shouldn't that? Yes.
Well, for me, the question should be: is there separation of power? And that separation of power have, you know, its own rules that gives everyone, you know, his power and his limitations.
And the limitations. That's
so,
right.
but if we have, if we don't have that separation of power, whereby the executive will twist all the affairs of, you know, both the the legislative part of government and also the judiciary, that means there is no separation of power, and that is when chaos will erupt in all that kind of arrangement.
Okay, I understand. We have to take a break to bring in our second guest, who is already making his way to the studios. In case you're just joining us, the program is Daily Politics, and today we're looking at amendment to the 2022 Electoral Act, you know, currently in use as it commenced at the National Assembly. We'll take a break. When we return, the conversation continues. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us. In case you're just joining us, the program is Daily Politics. You can do well by joining us, or rather following us across our social platforms, and also watch us live on YouTube. And today we're looking at the amendment to the 2022 Electoral Act, currently in use, as you know, started by the National Assembly. Just last week, a bill was presented in this respect, which has already scaled, I think, first reading and now passed, through the Committee on Electoral Matters to look, for further legislative action. Just like I said earlier on, we have right now in the studio Chima Christian, a good governance advocate and a member of the civil society group who has been following this issue very closely. Chima, thank you for joining us despite the, the challenges. I understand you're held somewhere,
yes.
You know, the nature of the traffic situation. Thank you for managing to be here with us.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, let me get to your immediate reaction to the commencement of this amendment process. You know, many Nigerians have been looking forward to this after the general and the off-season elections, and what transpired, you know, those challenges encountered.
Well, the thing is that my view is that the National Assembly is wasting the time of Nigerians in what they have presented.
Okay.
And because it's just a mere waste of time. There are about 4 items or 6 items that are in consideration for review.
Yes.
And none of them are holistic enough. None of them, in fact, addressed any of the shortcomings that we witnessed in the 2023 elections. And the National Assembly is considering, for instance, renewing the voter register every 10 years. And that's what they didn't talk about. They're also talking about frivolous petition.
Yeah, petitions.
If you have petitions that they deem frivolous. And so these things did not cover the main issues. Issues. So you left the big elephant in the room. You left the issues about strengthening the beavers, making it mandatory that the beavers must be used, making it outrightly unlawful to use the beavers, making it outrightly illegal to declare elections where they have, you know, there must be something there must be now that conclusiveness of elections and inconclusiveness of the elections must be clearly defined. And that's what you expect the National Assembly to be doing. Unfortunately, the National Assembly is wasting the time of Nigerians, chasing shadows.
Yeah, but whose responsibility it is to articulate some of those areas that need to be amended? The civil society groups were on ground. They monitor the elections. They've seen firsthand some of these challenges. And they also have, they have the right, for instance, to also make recommendations on areas that need to be amended. Who constitute or who comes up with the framework?
Well, the thing is this, and that's why if you look at the bill is sponsored by Honorable Francis Wivey, who is a private member sponsored bill, and it's not far-reaching enough, his recommendations. And I've expected not just the civil society, but I expected the opposition party. Nobody knows what happened in 2023 more than the opposition parties. The PDP had a situation room where they monitored everything. And not only did they have a situation room, they had a legal team that went to argue the case at the appeal court and went up to the Supreme Court. The Labour Party had the same thing. So I'm expecting these two platforms to crystallize their views, to crystallize their findings, to crystallize their experiences, and send them to the National Assembly. And by the way, those two parties have members represented in the National Assembly. That's right. And so you're expecting these parties to
initiate it in the first place.
To initiate it in the first place. And where the opponents have gone a step further to initiate, you have to strengthen it. And I'm not seeing that robust, active engagement of the opposition platforms. And
the fact that perhaps it even scaled the first reading.
It scaled the first reading.
There wasn't much
it has also scaled the second reading. It's not just the first. It has scaled the second reading. And as we speak, many people are now speculating that Nigerians may not even know when there will be public hearing for this. And as of today, this bill is not even on PLAC website. This bill is not anywhere in the public domain. Just a handful of legislators. Why are they hiding this bill? What is about this bill that they don't want Nigerians to see? If you are calling for instance, public hearing, the people should see the bill and make it part. It is not on the National Assembly website. It is not on PLAC website. Very few journalists have seen this bill. Why are we now playing hide and seek with the future of Nigerians? And that's why I'm calling on every serious contender about 2027 general elections, including people who may be running for presidency and also people who are running at the subnational levels, especially those who don't have the incumbency, to take it upon themselves to look at setting the templates. There are three sets of documents governing elections in Nigeria. One is the
Constitution.
The constitution, relevant sections of the Constitution. Number two is the Electoral Act. And number three, and the one I consider even more insidious, is the INEC guidelines. These three documents have to be critiqued. Okay, if you give a pass to this Constitution, the APC, sorry, the Electoral Act and the guidelines has to be critiqued. Where are the opposition leaders here? Where are the civil society groups here?
And there are relevant examples to cite. For instance, before we came in, we were talking about the controversies around transmission of results, which was a fundamental issue during the 2023 election. And the concern then was, okay, INEC has promised to make this process seamless, to ensure that there's transparency by implementing the transmission of results, in total, for instance. But then INEC, now coming back to the guidelines you're talking about, indicated through the guidelines that, okay, this is not mandatory. It's a provision that says shall, if we can do it. If we cannot do, it has nothing to. I mean, so how do you reconcile these issues now?
It is now left. That is also what you felt that will be captured, because that particular provision is so fundamental to the outcome of the elections that you don't even allow it to be on the guidelines, that you have to scale it up and bring it up to the NPC Act, so that although the guidelines is enforceable, but the guideline doesn't have the same force of law as the Electoral Act, right? So these are things you are supposed to upgrade from that mere suggestions to be in point of law, that if you don't do it,
to make them enforceable,
it becomes outrightly illegal for anybody to declare anybody winner if these provisions have not been met. But what I see here is that the mere palliative work they are doing around, they're just tinkering at the corner, and they are sidestepping the substantial issues. That this is not enough to instill confidence. And if the opposition parties don't take this up seriously, Nigerians will not have the confidence to even... You saw what happened in the by-elections, especially in Plateau and other such places where there were low...
I was talking about, one of the issues in Plateau now concerning the verdict of the Court of Appeal, how it became controversial and subject of a lot of concerns, almost created political tension or crisis in Plateau. Now the Supreme Court has made certain pronouncements, and then the Court of Appeal has...
That's what you expect the lawmakers to do, to use the instruments of the law where the law have been ambiguous. Now we have had 1999 to this period, and we have had from 1999 increasing participation of the judiciary in determining electoral outcomes. So what you want to see is that the National Assembly look at all the fault lines. So you're not just regulating, because what they're trying to do is to regulate the petitioner. But they are not regulating the courts. You have to set the guidelines clear. This is where the court's powers starts. This is where it stops. And this is where this court cannot jump out. So we have to set clear policies. You don't want court A making pronouncements in the morning and court B making something else in the evening. That is a major problem in Nigeria's electoral jurisprudence. The lawmakers are not talking about that. And so why are they receiving fat paychecks every month to debate our laws?
But I think they will be interested in some of these things, because in the end, they will be the ones to be at the receiving end. So sometimes, just like Comrade has said earlier, the laws, they look at what favors them, and what doesn't favor them, they don't take it serious. But now the opposition parties, Nigerians alike, the civil society organizations know the right things to do, not the key issues. Now, perhaps the concern is, how do we articulate them and then push them to the National Assembly for legislative action?
Thankfully, and you have that there will be public hearing.
That's
and
right.
We are monitoring what is happening to see when there will be public hearing. And I encourage Nigerians, whether they be represented in political parties, political movements, support groups, and all of this, is to pay keen attention to what is happening. And then what has happened, what we know about the legislative, that is the National Assembly, is that when issues like this come up, they give you 2 days notice. And then they do their public hearing. And within that 2 days notice, they tell you to produce 12 or 24 copies of your memorandum to them, in hard copy and also in soft copy.
So if you are not prepared, then...
Yes, and so organizations that are...
off guard,
Yes, organizations that are interested in this must be monitoring the clerk of that subcommittee of the National Assembly, both houses, right? And then the organizations should now start to prepare their memorandum, right? So that once they say green lights, we submit our memorandum, and then, meanwhile, by the way, there are some times you submit your memorandum, they will not acknowledge it, they will not call you for the public hearing. So these things are quite, and that's why you want that there must be credible watchdogs who are following the National Assembly step by step. Because what is going to happen is that they're going to railroad this thing into a law, and it becomes a law. And once Nigerians see it that they can't pass any vote of confidence on it, they will vote with not participating, and then you have a huge disappointing outcome into it. So the road to 2027 has already started with this debating of the bill.
Right.
All the participants in that election, intending participants, must now begin to make their voices heard on these issues.
Right, making the voices heard. And we have the youth representation now. President Nigerian Youth Congress, yes, Nasser. We're looking at the areas that need to be amended, for instance, because in a way, we're also trying to come up with some key areas that needed to be looked into. I know that, just like I said earlier, before Chima came, youths in Nigeria are also worried about, participating, and how the electoral environment will guarantee their active participation. At some point, they came up with the not too young to run, which was assented to, and all of that. But then it hasn't given them the leverage or the impetus, to participate actively because of the commercialization of the entire process. Now, what do you think needs to be done in that respect, perhaps to make it more seamless or more easier for youths to participate actively?
All right, first of all, I will begin with saying the main issue, activism alone cannot solve our problems.
Okay.
And so we have to go critically, we have to go on action if we really want some of our problems to be solved. And that is why the United Nigerian Congress in the first place over 13 years was being formed to first build the ideology, build on it, and then move further.
Okay.
So if you don't have people who believe in that ideology, there is no way we can be able to solve most of our problems. And this is why, as my brother said, public hearing. How many public hearings have we been hearing in our country? Of course, you can be doing it every day, but at the end, what will happen? You understand? So the issue of not too young to run was politically, politicized. It wasn't done with, the sense of the good intention to solve some of the problems and also give the youth the chance to participate in the political processes. An example of it being politicized or, not in a goodwill is the last election where House of Representatives form alone is around 10 million for some parties. You understand? How the hell, sorry, let me use
just be moderate.
Yes, exactly. How do you expect a moderate Nigerian who maybe is working in the federal government that is that they are paying 35,000 or 100, who also have that capacity and capabilities to solve some of our problems? How do you think, or how do you expect him to raise that 10 million naira to go for that election? You see, so this kind of problems, not too young children can never work, of course, because a lot of things haven't been addressed. It was done based on politics.
So are you ready to take up the challenge and perhaps present another not too poor to run kind of? So that
well, the whole idea is, that was why me personally, I quit party politics and I joined the United Nigerian Congress, of course, and I became the national president, is to first look at the critical problems that we are facing and how are we going to challenge those in power in order to have a lot of things that are supposed to happen. That was why we formed I joined the organization, of course, and we formed that coalition. We have the structure in the whole 36 state and all the 774 local government representatives. And the whole idea is having the grassroots Nigerians believe in one ideology first.
You mean there is a particular youth ideology?
Yes, we have an ideology. Ideology of nationalism, ideology of true patriotism. The sense of, the issue of Nigeria mostly is more of on patriotism, because most of our challenges happen because of that lack of patriotism.
But how do you expect, to drive that in an atmosphere that has been fully commercialized?
That is why we didn't go for political parties.
Okay.
We go directly into building that ideology. If you can be able to brainwash the mindset of, let's say, someone to join Boko Haram or someone to join a kidnap, why can't you brainwash Nigerians on the values of Nigeria? I believe yes,
the values.
Yes, because it's something that a lot of Nigerians used to be educated on the value of patriotism. Okay. So if you can be able to solve that, build the ideology, and then everything will go in place.
Okay, Chima, yes. Do you subscribe to that? Looking at the role, the youth can play in holding this leadership accountable, especially now that we have the window, for instance, the Electoral Act amendment has commenced. Yes. How do we articulate some of those issues that would change the narrative?
Well, there are many ways to kill a rat, and then all of us will not be focused on the same. That's why I like that he's following his trajectory, and some of us will be partisan, or some of us will also not be partisan, and some of us may be in the boardroom, some of us may be in the streets, and the people who are in the streets are energizing the people in the boardroom. The people in the boardroom are speaking for the people in the streets. If you don't have them in the streets, you won't be respected in the boardroom. If you are all in the streets, your voice will not be respected. So these things are a potpourri or a mix of activities. So I'm beginning to sense that many of Nigeria's youths are growing despondent.
Okay.
Especially since the last elections. People feel defeated. People feel that their voices were not heard. People feel that their voices were suppressed. And a lot of the feedback I've been getting, although my personal use of social media is subjective, but it turns that anytime I speak to encourage people, it turns that people tend to tell me, oh, Chima, forget it, I'm not participating again.
They have lost confidence.
They have lost confidence in the system. And you remember when during that election days, you will see youths playing football on the street. It's appearing to me that if we don't take concrete steps, that the next election, you will see Nigerian young people playing football on the streets. And when you have the largest demographic of Nigerians, which you know that we're majorly young people, not playing active role, and then leaving only our mothers, leaving only our fathers, and then our grandparents too. And then these are people that politicians can easily bamboozle with words like ethnicity, religion, with financial inducement. And those of us who are majorly young people, and then you also find that that's also the population segment that has the highest literacy rate. And then if you leave that out of the voting population, then the quality of your voters and the quality of the voting decisions has eroded. And that's what we're beginning to see. And every legitimate effort to get back Nigerians to emplace confidence in the system, to know that although things are difficult, but if we keep engaging, it can be better. Those are the things that we should pursue. And I encourage civil society groups, the media, the political platforms, non-partisan platforms, to begin to tell Nigerians you can participate again. You can have that confidence. Even if you don't get it at the first shot, you can try again. And that's what we're beginning to communicate to Nigerians. If you give up hope entirely, despondency will not solve it. Because of that despondency, people can now yield into Boko Haram. People can now yield because they don't see that there's a legitimate platform for progress.
Okay, now that we've seen, perhaps, you know, the process has started, for instance, restoring the confidence of the people in the electoral processes and all of that. INEC has a fundamental role to play, because it is largely at the receiving end. When Nigerians begin to lose confidence in the electoral management body and its activities, it will perhaps will not speak well for Nigeria. And again, the National Assembly, which should come to the rescue, has now commenced the process. But then here you are criticizing, the direction and perhaps the political will to address the key issues. How do we bring them back, to fall in line with the expectations of the people?
There is this thing that they say in my local parlance, that he who is hard-pressed should lead the charge. And so if you are the hardest pressed in the room, you should be running, and then your friends can come after you. Between the Nigerian politician and the Nigerian masses, who is suffering the most? My answer is that it's the Nigerian masses. And although our model of development for nearly 60 years, and it hasn't worked, is we are looking for development to appear top to bottom. And that's where everybody is criticizing the leadership. And I think that there is something genuine to say, because if you look at any leadership from 1960 to this period, if you want to criticize, there are things to criticize about them. Even the incumbent administration, there are things to criticize about them. The current leadership of INEC, there is something to criticize about them. But the question is this: can we flip this a bit? We have criticized leaders for 60 years, and it hasn't worked. Why can we not turn it the other way around?
Between bottom-up kind of approach.
Yeah, bottom-up kind of approach, because democracy, like I keep telling people, work a demand and supply kind of thing. The leaders are not working because the people are not demanding. There is nowhere in the world where you will see supply side governance ahead of demand side. If people demand for 10 things, their government will do 2, and they're owing them 8. If you don't demand at all, you have to, as we speak in Germany, there is an ongoing protest. In France, same thing. In UK, same thing. People are pushing their government hard on public policy issues. What is happening in Germany? Farmers, they are not getting the better slice of the deal. They are pushing their government to grant them more concessions and all of those things. And you will think that Germany is a first world country, by the way. And if you look at the living conditions of the farmers and everything that is happening, you would think that it's all good. Yet they are demanding for more. Then Nigerians that don't even have up to 1/10 of what they have are not demanding. And we are banking on the assumed benevolence of our leaders. No, you can't bank on the assumed benevolence of the leaders.
We need to see some sort of resistance too on the part of the government and its the political parties themselves. And remember, just recall recently when there were protests in Niger, in Kano, and so on, and then the ruling party came out to say, this is engineered by the opposition political parties, to discredit the government. At some point, some even say, it's a criticism, or it's done to ridicule the Tinubu government because, it happens to come from a particular section of the country. So this is what we obtain here. If Nigerians come out genuinely to protest or to demand for this leadership accountability we are talking about, it is given different meanings.
Let me tell you this. At this rate, they are still talking. And what I tell Nigerians is this: between 1960 to this period, especially at the highlighted period of what do you call it, dictatorship. Every single Nigerian that has been kidnapped, killed, jailed, maimed, disappeared, forced, brutalized on the account of their demanding for credible governance. If you put the numbers together, the Delegawas of this world, the ELSAs of this world, the Lekki Tollgate massacres of this world, if you put all of them together, they are not up to the number of Nigerians who die weekly. Do you know what? Anti-malarials is now sold for 3,250, beyond the effective reach of many Nigerians. I can tell you for free, many Nigerians are dying daily on the account of anti-malarials, on the account of not able to afford malaria drugs. And if you tell these people, come out and demand for better, they will say, oh, they will kill me. But you allow malaria to kill you. And I tell people this: you come out to protest and demand once, you are pushed back. You are telling me, oh, you've given up on Nigeria, but you are applying for the 7th time for your visa. You have resilience to apply for visa for 7 times, and you are still applying. But you voted once and you say you will not vote again. You protested once and you say that's the resilience. Because when it comes to our personal affairs, you will see youth trek through the desert just to get to Europe. You see youths go to Cameroon, go to Togo, just to find ways to circumvent the process to get to their destination. But the processes, the energy Nigerian young people are spending, applying for visa, applying for masters that they don't need. If we spend the 10% of it to build Nigeria, there would not be a need to travel in the first place.
Comrade Nasiru, talking about holding leadership accountable to the people and how to do it, how to get it right and all of that. Chima was just talking about, how beyond, the street protests or so, health care challenges alone are claiming the lives of Nigerians. But we have a government that decided, to take up, if you like, or to remove subsidy, which is in the range of trillions of naira. And the government is saying that this money is going to be channeled towards healthcare delivery, towards transportation, and so on and so forth. But Nigerians are also asking, okay, where are these trillions of naira that are redirected towards healthcare? Why are we still finding it difficult to access healthcare?
You see, let me give you a little story of what happened a few months ago. I was able to visit the National Assembly, and then I went to one of our constituency member. He is a first timer, and he showed me some of his documents about a past project in one area, let's say in that constituency.
The constituency.
Yes, a project of 1.something billion naira. In paper, it is existing, but in reality, it doesn't exist.
Has been taken away, or
they have already paid the money and everything intact. In fact, the document he showed me, I just went go to one corner of that seat and started looking at him like this, because it is beyond our imagination. And then I had the opportunity to.
You said somebody has taken the money, or
someone have taken the money. The project is not there, but the money have been
allocated.
In fact, the project in paper have already is already finished, completed. So
ghost project,
ghost project in this kind of yes, I was able to visit one of town hall meetings organized by the National Assembly, and I was able to question all the members there. I told them, look, if 40% alone of our annual budget will be implemented correctly, truthfully, and
judiciously,
would have looked. There shouldn't have been any, any project left in Nigeria by today, because most of our budget are not being implemented the way they should be. It's either sham project, or maybe a project that
white elephant.
Yeah. So these kind of problems are the major problems we have, in the development of our country, because we have Nigerians who don't truly love the country as they should be. You understand?
Yeah.
In fact, it is even opposite. We have more of enemies of the country than those who love the country.
Someone who can allocate 1.5 billion naira for a project that is not existing.
And that person, that project is for his own constituency. And that man, or that whoever honorably is, comes from that constituency. He was maybe born and brought up in that constituency. But with him, he agreed, to spend 1.7 billion on something that doesn't exist, and that will end up harming the people of his own constituency. So it comes back to what my brother says. We need endurance. Of course, activism, us speaking every day will never solve the problems. But we need endurance in whatever we are doing. We just have to keep doing it, and then maybe create a certain force that might check all this. Exactly. Right. So that we can take our country forward.
Okay, Chima, building resilience, ensuring that there's accountability, forging a strong partnership to engage the leadership.
Yes.
In 30 seconds rather.
My fundamental belief is that Africa is at a crossroad, and then that we are closer to the morning than we ever believe, and that I believe that Nigerians can profit from the emerging Africa if they persist. We have this resilience when it comes to our private activities, our private lives. You see SMEs, people are thriving there despite the government, but in public, demanding accountability, we are not thriving. So I want to see that, resilience we have built in our private businesses put into corporate good.
Thank you very much, Chima. Chima Christian is a good governance advocate, a member of the civil society groups, and of course has been giving us his perspective on the current efforts, a process of amending the Electoral Act 2022. Thank you very much for your informed perspective.
Thank you.
Comrade Nasser Suleiman is also the president of the Nigerian Youth
United Nigerian Youth
Congress. I thank you very much for your informed perspective.
Right, thank you very much.
We appreciate your coming.
Thank you very much.
And viewers, this is a wrap on today's edition of Daily Politics. You can do well by joining us tomorrow, where we'll be back with another interesting topic and personalities. Until then, on behalf of the technical crew, my name is Suleiman. Many thanks for being there.